Okay, if you turn to page 2 in your new chapter 4 packet called Functions and Linear Equations, okay, you should have picked this up at the main office. So on page 2, now if you didn't get it, you're going to have to print out page 2. The link is in the stream. Okay, so this is page 2. And on page 2, they show you a coordinate plane. And we are going to go over the coordinate plane. Now, the coordinate plane is created by drawing your x-axis. Your x-axis looks just like a number line. And then drawing the y-axis. And we know that's the y because it goes down like a y goes down, okay? So you have your x-axis and your y-axis, and together they form the coordinate plane. Where they intersect is the point 0, 0, and we call that the origin. Okay, now when we draw a coordinate plane, we create 4 quadrants. This is quadrant 1. Quadrant 1 is the quadrant where both x is positive and y is positive. So anything in quadrant 1, both x and y are positive. Now, quadrant 2, this is where the x values are negative, but y is positive. This is quadrant 2. Now, often when you see these quadrants, you see Roman numerals. So I'm going to do it both ways. You should try to remember the Roman numerals, but if you write regular, that's fine with me. Now, down here is where y is negative, and over here is where x is negative. So quadrant 3 is where both x and y are negative. And quadrant 4, that's an IV. Think of, I want to get into Ivy League, so I'm going to remember IV means 4, okay? This is where the x is positive and the y is negative. That's quadrant 4. So in quadrant 1, you have an ordered pair. The x is positive, the y is positive. In quadrant 2, with all of your ordered pairs, the x's are all negative, the y's are all positive. In quadrant 3, you have a negative x and a negative y. And in quadrant 4, your x is positive, but your y is negative. Okay? Now, on a quiz, I'm going to ask you to label everything I just labeled. So you have to know this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, right? You have to know quadrant 1, and then in quadrant 1, your coordinates are positive, positive. This is quadrant 2, and in quadrant 2, your coordinates are negative, positive. This is quadrant 3, and your coordinates are negative, negative. It's quadrant 4, and it's positive, negative. Okay, so all of this is written on page 1, but I did want to go over it. Now, on page 2, it asks us to graph these coordinates. So I want to go over how to graph. So it says graph negative 3, 4. So you always start at the origin. So I start at the origin, I go over negative 1, 2, 3. You always move the x right or left first. So you walk to the elevator before you go up and down. So I go left 3, and then I go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So this point right here, negative 3, 4. And it asks you what quadrant is it in. Well, this is easy because I have it labeled. So this is in quadrant 2. Now I am to graph 5, 0. I'll do 5, 0 in blue. So I'm going to go over positive 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to rise nothing. So this is 5, 0. Now, we do not say this is between quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. we say 5, 0 is on the x-axis. So when a coordinate is on an axis, you just say which axis it's on. Now, letter C, and I'll do C in multicolored, is 0. So I start here. I don't go right or left. I just go down 2. So this is 0, 2. And this is on the y-axis. So what does this point and this point have in common? They are both on an axis, and they both contain a 0. So whenever a point contains a 0, it's either going to be on the x-axis or the y-axis. Okay, D is -3, -2. So I go over 1, 2, 3, down 2. So this is -3, -2. And 5, 2, I go over positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I go up 2. And oh, sorry, it's -2. So I go down 2. So this is 5, -2, and that's in quadrant 4. Okay, so hopefully everybody remembers how to graph. You will have some practice graphing, but you do need to know the coordinate plane and how to graph.